All right. Well, it looks like we've got a pretty good crowd now, so we do have a bit of an agenda, so we'll get started. This is being recorded, and we will post it later. So if you're having a bad hair day, I'm sorry. Like you're going to join me with having this online. Anyway, we're really excited. I think you guys have figured out by now that you represent the largest incoming lead class in our history, which is just so exciting. A testament to Morgan, a testament to some of the folks who preceded her, to KU, and of course to you guys for making it through 2 to 3 years of undergraduate and staying on top of things and getting ready for law school. So as I mentioned in the end, we're joined today by Professor Mulligan, who has been working with, I think you guys all know Professor Mulligan. He's been working with the LEAD program for a long time now, and also teaches in the honors program. Morgan, the lead advisor, I'm sure you know her too. We have Randy and Zach, who are law students. Robert Curtis will be joining us a little later. He's also a law student. And then Mallory Baker, who is our admissions coordinator. And she's also an expert on financial aid. So she'll hopefully be able to fill us in on some of the financial aid questions. So we put this together because we want you guys to have the information you need to go to law school. So I'm going to start the first part of the program. I'm going to do some Q&A with some of the folks here. To go over some more technical kind of administrative type things that you probably have questions about. And then after we get through that, then we'll do more open-ended questions about, law school, how to prepare for law school, all that kind of stuff. So first, I'm going to take the first question. The first question is, when do you enroll for classes in your first semester? I think all of you know by now, but just in case, you do not need to enroll for your fall classes at law school. We will do that for you. That will happen sometime around mid-July, maybe a week or two earlier, but we like to say mid-July just in case there'll be any delays. We will enroll you for your classes. Everyone takes the same classes, and although you will be placed in different sections. The lead students will be placed in separate sections pretty much at random, except for we'll try to divide you equally. So there will likely be 5 sections this year. Is that correct, Professor Mulligan? Yes, 5 sections. So with 14 lead students, you're probably going to have 2 or 3 lead compadres with you as you go forward. So that'll be nice. And in the spring, and you'll be taking, the core curriculum that every law student takes. I believe in the fall, it'll be criminal law, contracts, and civil procedure. Also lawyering, which is legal writing plus. And so you'll be enrolled with those classes. It'll generally be Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 p.m., 8 a.m. if you're lucky enough to get Professor Mulligan, or if you're even luckier and you get someone else who starts a little later, you'll start a little later in the day. And then in the spring, I believe you actually do the enrollment yourself, but again, it'll all be pre-programmed. In your second and third year, whereas your first year is all pre-selected classes, in your second and third year, that's when you get to specialize. That's when the curriculum opens up. You have that core basic foundation to build on, and then you can move in a specific direction or take a more broad-based path. You'll have faculty advisors that can help you with that, choose a curriculum. So that's the first question. Second question, I'm going to ask Morgan. Morgan, I don't know if it's about dorm living, and also I don't know if anyone's planning on, lives in the dorms and plans on staying in the dorms, but are they eligible to stay in the dorms as a law student?
As a graduate student, there are living arrangements that you would have to obviously contact housing to see what those specific arrangements are. I think you were going to ask about Greek housing too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just up to your chapter house. I know most of the IFC Greek houses currently are not even planning to open in the fall. So not only with what's going on, but just whatever the requirements are for your chapter house, you'll have to check in with them to find out.
Yeah, thank you so much for that answer. And just to touch on COVID-19, we've addressed this in our newsletters and other Zoom meetings. So we're happy to answer more questions about it. But I thought today we'd focus more on the lead students. But as you know, I'll give you the 30-second recap. We are planning on having live in-person classes at Green Hall, but of course, as circumstances permit. And so, everything's subject to change at this point. But we are planning on live in-person classes. The next topic that comes up, financial aid. A lot of you may have taken loans in undergrad. Some of you may have not taken any loans in undergrad. And most students, when they go to law school, do take out loans for part or all of the cost of their legal education. That includes not just tuition, but also living expenses, books, transportation. So, through the loan program, students borrow up to what's called the cost of attendance. And cost of attendance is an amount that the university has determined is the typical cost for law school. And under the federal loan programs, if you are eligible for those programs, you should be able to borrow up to that cost of attendance, minus any scholarships you may have received for that. For this, I'm going to turn to, now in terms of how to apply for financial aid. We won't be able to give you the full overview right now, but I'm going to turn to Mallory because she does have a lot of expertise in this area. And Mallory can briefly touch on some of the steps for lead students, because there are some special issues with lead students in terms of getting financial aid. So take it away.
Hi guys. Okay, so everyone on this is starting in fall, correct? Yes? Okay, awesome. So are you all planning on filing your FAFSA or getting loans? Or regardless, if you are, so you'll file your FAFSA online. I did just talk to a gal named Madison Orange. She will be your representative for KU's financial aid. And I will send out an email with her contact information, with her email and her phone number. And I verified how exactly you guys will need to apply for that, because it's a little different. Well, it seems like it might be a little different for you guys. So though you'll technically not have your undergrad degree just quite yet, you will be taking graduate classes. So you'll be classified as a graduate student. So you will be applying for financial aid as a graduate student, which means when you file your FAFSA, you will be eligible for subsidized loans only. So you won't be eligible as an undergraduate student when you apply for those loans. So it's a little bit different than what you applied for this year. Does anybody have questions on that? It's a little different than what you might have had this year, but I'll send you guys the link to the FAFSA website as well. It kind of explains it a little bit better in a little simpler terms, but that's kind of the gist of it. But anybody have any questions?
Yeah, feel free to pipe in with questions at any time, guys. It is a lot of ground to cover, but that's what we're here for. And you can always contact us separately too.
Yeah, definitely. Email me anytime with questions. I will say the earlier that you apply for your FAFSA, the better. You want to get that into the financial aid office quickly so that they can determine what your guys' eligibility is. And if there's any issues, we can get those taken care of early rather than later. So that's all I've got if you guys don't have any questions.
Great.
Anything else?
Thank you, Mallory. That's fantastic.
Right.
Next, I want to cover the topic of graduation. I I know you guys are all looking forward to, hopefully next year we'll have an actual live graduation. So, and I'll let Morgan talk about the steps that you'll need to take during the course of the year to make sure that you get to graduate with your, and we're talking about your undergraduate degree.
So I know a good amount of you that are entering law school have already graduated. Raise your hand if you just graduated. Yeah, just one? Okay, well, congratulations. So I know some people already graduated, and that's great. You don't even have to worry about this anymore. You're just starting early. But those of you that still have hours left towards your undergraduate degree, you all still have a graduation advisor. So as a senior, everyone within the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences is assigned a graduation advisor. Do you all know who yours is? Do you all know? No? Okay. So I can send it to you online. It's all just alphabetical split of who your graduation advisor is. They're your go-to person if you have any questions on any outstanding requirements. You all should have everything done except for just your total credit hours. So at this point, all you should need is just some more hours to get to 120 to be able to get that bachelor's degree. So what's going to happen is you still have that advisor so you most likely will have your 120 hours by next spring. So you'll want to apply like everybody else. You'll apply for your graduation for that spring 2021 graduation. And all that information, I send out an email reminding you, but you'll also be getting emails from a lot of other people with that information. You also don't have to wait until spring. So let's say you actually only need 14 more hours to get that 120. You can apply for this fall graduation as well. So as long as you're getting those hours, once you have the 120, you can apply for graduation. Questions on that?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So what if we can be done by the end of the fall, but we want to wait until the spring? So that would be what, like 29 for our entire first year? Would all of those credit hours go toward our undergrad, or would just the number we would need to get to 120 go toward it?
All of them would.
Okay.
What would be the reason to wait?
Like all of my friends would be graduating next spring, and I feel like the likelihood of having an actual graduation next spring is probably better than December.
Right. Well, you can actually go ahead and graduate and still participate in the spring graduation ceremony if that's what you want to do. We can talk about what that looks like. But that is an option. You can go ahead and graduate and then still participate in the spring stuff. Because actually the fall graduation, they don't do the walk down the hill or anything like that in the fall. So those students actually do participate in the spring anyways.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Other questions?
Great. The final question on the administrative list of questions I had, although again, we definitely invite you to ask questions on other topics that might be more kind of technical in nature. The last one is many of the lead students are in the honors program. What some of the issues that might crop up there? Someone asked if they still had some requirements left for honors, would they be able to complete that? How should the students go about making sure that they'll graduate from the honors program?
Yeah. So with the honors program, you can still continue to meet those requirements as long as you're still working on your bachelor's degree. And those requirements are listed on your degree progress report. So you can see those if what you still need to do. You also can work with an advisor in the honors program, not only with the LEAD program, but also pharmacy students. They have a lot of students that are starting in pharmacy school early and are still in the honors program. So it's not just you guys that start graduate school early. So they will still work with you on those. I did learn today also that any graduate level courses do count as honors eligible requirements. So if you still need an honors course, a graduate level course does count towards those. So that's also helpful if you're still needing any of those. But the additional requirements, you can keep working on those until you get that bachelor's degree. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We're going to transition now to the second part, which is going to be more how to prepare academically and maybe socially for law school, especially from a lead student perspective. This is where we're going to bring in Zach, Randy, and Robert. I'm going to ask Randy first because Randy's let me know that he has to go to a dentist appointment in a little bit, so he won't be able to join us for the whole program. I hope I didn't just violate any HIPAA rules there, but and so I'm gonna throw it to Randy, and for the lead students that are here with us, Paula, Caitlin, Allie, Charles, and Alex. You know, we hope that you'll ask a lot of good questions. I have a feeling some of your classmates will be downloading this later, so you can ask on their behalf too some questions that you think might be going through people's minds. But I'll ask the first question. Randy, big question. How is law school different from undergraduate?
Well, you kind of got to rework your brain a little bit. You got to be a lot more disciplined. That's what I found. You got to have a set schedule. You got to take a lot more time reading, because in undergrad, I did pretty well, even though I, skimmed through most of my reading the night before, even like an hour before class. But you really can't do that in law school. You got to synthesize the information. You got to put aside hours and hours and hours of your day to really focus on what the court is saying, what the editors of the book are saying, what your professor wants, and yeah, basically.
Oh, and can I ask each of you, when you talk first, to say what year you're in, what year you started at KU, and where you're from?
Oh,
so Randy.
I just finished 1L, my first year of law school, and I started KU with my undergrad in 2016, and I'm from Wichita, Kansas.
Cool. Zachary or Robert, any thoughts on that question?
Sure, I'll go. And I'm a rising 3L. I started in 2015 at KU, and then I'm from Kansas City. So I think what Randy said is really good. And again, he's the most, recent completion of 1L, so he's a good person to talk to. I would say one of the biggest adjustments is getting used to having people who have a lot more life experiences than you in the classroom. So I just remember very distinctly my very first day, I sat down. Maybe I was a little full of myself, maybe not, I don't know. And we were just introducing ourselves, and I was like, oh, I'm a lead student, feeling really good about myself. And like, that's a really big accomplishment. And then the guy next to me was like, oh, I just got out of the FBI. I was over in Kuwait. I was a military translator. I speak Arabic, and, I was saying all this stuff. And I'm like, okay. So, readjust your perspective. And, the learning goes both ways, because a lot of people in your classes will be like, wow, you're so put together. You're, doing really great things. And you can also learn from their, 10, 20, 30, even 40 years of extra experience that can be really helpful in the classroom.
Well, similarly, to follow up on that, my next question was, lead students, they're going to be a bit younger than some of the other students. How much does age play a factor in law school life? Robert, your
Mind,
turn.
I'll take this one. So I'm Robert. I'm from Olathe, and like Zach, I'm a rising 3L. I don't think age matters at all as a lead student because the only difference is a year. Like, I've never felt it. So, just as long as you're acting professionally around your classmates, it's going to be fine.
Yeah, I could say personally, I started law school at the different end. I was 30 when I started law school. And I always tell folks, I usually tell this to non-traditional students, I say from about 8 a.m. to about 8 p.m. in law school life, everyone is exactly the same age. You're a 1L, you're a 2L, or you're a 3L. Or I guess you're one of three ages. As you go off into, as the night gets a little longer, people go off and do either age appropriate or age inappropriate activities. But at law school, you're going to be so focused. That's just my 2 cents. You're going to be so focused on, the academic portion, learning so much new information, being really excited about what you're learning, and also maybe a little stressed out by how much you're learning. And you're going to go through that together. So also following up on this, in law school versus undergraduate, what do you need to do different to be successful in law school?
I mean, I think I kind of touched on that earlier. You really need to structure your life a lot more. And I was never good at time management, but my 1L year really taught me a lot. And I think you need to really balance out your social life and your school life. Because in undergrad, I had a little more weight on my social life than my academics. But you really need to adjust that scale so you can really succeed.
Anyone else want to pitch in?
I think Randy hit it pretty well, and I'd say in that kind of balance, a lot of times it takes a lot of discipline to really, still be happy with the work that you're doing and still be happy with, some of your personal developments that are taking place. Because law school, it does change the way you think and how you engage with other people, and it's always important to make sure that you save some time to keep yourself, happy and content with that process. So, don't work all the time, but work hard.
Make sure you see your family at some point. Yeah, I think Zach and Randy have generally covered it. You'll generally find yourself spending more time working on law school things. And I think the probably hardest part of adjusting is just figuring out how to tell your family that you won't be around quite as much, but then making sure that you still spend quality time with them or your friends.
Just to, this is Professor Mulligan, and I think I'm a 22L. Just to piggyback on those answers. It's my experience that a lot of folks in law school are both the beneficiary as well as a victim of their own success. I've had the pleasure of interacting with many of you folks as undergrads as well as in law school. And you're people who got it immediately, didn't really have to study a lot to be the top person in your individual class, even in the honors program. If you were really honest, put in a minimal amount of effort, turned in a great paper, and were rewarded for that type of participation. And that's been a system that for years, for many of you, has led you to great success. And I guess I would just really hear what Randy, Zach, and Robert are saying. If that system worked for you for a number of years, kudos. Look back upon it with some happiness, but realize that now you're in a space where it is much more about organization and effort and less about raw horsepower. So everybody, essentially KU Law School went around the country and picked out you from every university in the country and around the world, and put you in a curved grading environment where everyone cannot get an A. So it really is that organization and work ethic that puts you over the hump, as opposed to just raw intellectual horsepower. To the degree to which that intellectual horsepower is what's been getting you through. I see Randy shaking his head quite a bit. So, and that's one of those things that I think it's easy to say here in this meeting, but it's a different thing to live. So I think part of it is that sort of experiential knowledge of getting in and just what does that feel like. So I might ask some of our law students. You talked about organizing your day and that sort of thing. As a second semester 1L or as a second year student, how did you organize your day? What's the day in the life look like?
I would wake up, shower, do everything, eat breakfast, and find some time for yourself to go over what you read last night. Then you got to go into class with a really focused mindset and try not to wander off, and you really got to be focused on what your professor is saying. And then make sure you eat a good, decent lunch so you have enough fuel to go for your afternoon classes. And then take a little break after your classes are done. Go to the gym or do something that makes you feel good. And then you gotta put maybe like 5 hours a day to just reading, I'd say, and then get to bed at a good time.
What about some of the other folks?
I think it largely depends on the activities that you're doing. The amount of time that you spend reading is going to probably vary from person to person. I was involved as a 1L in several things. I was working a little bit. I was doing traffic court. So then for me, it was about figuring out how to fit those things in my schedule, as well as doing the normal stuff. Zach?
I mean, I don't have anything like spectacular to add. I think it's pretty much just try to find as much structure as you can in your day. At least for me, someone who really benefits from routine. But especially in 1L, things are just kind of going to get thrown at you. Like there'll be all kinds of social events and like late night class orientations or like a mediation clinicals just suddenly pop up. Do your best to kind of wrangle things in and like have as much, structure as you can throughout your day and still save a ton of time, probably triple or quadruple as much time as you would have in undergrad to actually read the materials.
Had a good question on text, which I responded to everyone, but so grades are curved was the question, and the answer is yes. At KU and every law school in the country, grades are curved. At KU, in a hyper-technical sense, our grades aren't curved, they're subject to an average. But what that means, again, it's one of those things so I typed out there for 1L students, we have a 1L curve, which is more rigorous than our upper division curve. Our 1L curve requires that a class come in between a 2.8 or a 3.0. Your grades in your first year, and most of law school, but especially your first year, are going to be either entirely or overwhelming majority based just upon the final examination. That final examination will be graded blindly by secret number, and the grades distributed and the curve met blindly. What that means then is one thing to say that, but it's another thing to get used to that intellectually, emotionally rather. So in a class of, say, Randy was in my contracts class in first semester, we had 46 students. What that meant was 4 students received an A or an A minus. So it's one thing to know those things out there, but you have to put yourself in that space. 10%, less than 10% of the students received an A or an A minus. You've done incredibly well. You've really made an incredible accomplishment. If you earn a B in a class, a B minus is right in the heartland of the curve. for law school if you look at where we are. So readjusting what those mean and what that's telling you. It's one thing to look at it, so well, that's the curve, but you need to understand it emotionally. And it's interesting, everyone walking in, of course, assumes they're in that 8% or so that gets one of the 4 A's out of the 46 people. But obviously that can't be true. So adjusting what success means, not in asking for less or not pushing yourself, but understanding in some sense emotionally what it means, can be an adjustment for a hyperachiever such as yourself. And to know that you're doing an incredible job if after your first semester you have a 2.9. That means you're at the median of the class. That would mean that your 2.9 would mean that in graduate school, meaning you're the top 2% of most educated people in the United States, which is the most educated country in the world, in a competitive curved environment, competing against people from all across the country, you came in right at the middle. Kudos, right? But that's hard to digest and understand what that means. So putting that on, not just intellectually, but emotionally, I think can be something that is a challenge for people. And it can be something that becomes an albatross for people in their second semester. Gee, I have a 2.95 and blah, 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 this is not for me. And I give up. Like, no, you're in the middle of your class. That's outstanding. Good work. Work harder, do more, keep it. So, but you have to kind of adjust that. So there's just the intellectual side of it, but the sort of emotional dealing with it side of it, which I think for students such as yourselves is probably a change. I imagine some of you maybe got an A- once, so you have to adjust for the realities of what this is.
To add to that, it's certainly a challenge going from an environment where you're not competing with people to an environment where you are. But I think it's a really good idea to go in there with the attitude that you're going to be cooperative with other people, and you're not, while you are competing against other people, don't, do things like doctor your notes when someone asks you for those things, or other practices that just sort of aren't in good faith, because people notice those things and they notice who's being hyper competitive, and do what feels natural to you. But I think a lot of people appreciate it when people aren't coming off as very competitive, which I think in the long run is probably more helpful to you later on the line when you're looking to work with people and be their colleagues later on. So just sort of keep that in mind as you go into the first semester.
Well, I think you also find over the 3-year experience and then beyond, when you're an attorney or out working in your career, while good grades in law school can open up certain doors, and so there are good reasons to do well in law school, it's not the end all and be all of law school success. There are many successful attorneys out there who did not finish in the top 10%, of their class. And the skill sets that we'll be teaching you are more than just how to get a good grade in law school. Certainly not discouraging people from, trying to get good grades in law school, because as I mentioned, there can be opportunities that open up based on good grades. But there's also opportunities that open up because you're good at going into a job interview and convincing someone in a short period of time that you're professional, responsible, smart. And we'll work with you on those skills too. There's also people who are successful because they really grasp the connection between, the law and how to work with clients and how to develop good strategies for clients, which may or may not, sometimes is reflected in law school grades, sometimes really are things that show up in other venues. So certainly, do your best in law school. I don't think it's almost hard not to do your best in law school because there's a lot of work. Do your best, work for good grades, it's a good thing, but it's not the end of the world if you are in the middle of the class or something like that. In fact,
I'd like to, everyone could see Charles' next text on that. So couple of things I would respond to that. First, like the point I'm trying to make is I think it's important to have a different sense of what it means, good grades means. So if your definition of good grades as an undergraduate student is that I have a 3.6 GPA or something like that, I think you need to change what that definition means. Certainly our employers look at it differently, right? So, what is going to open up tons of opportunities for you is not a 4.0. I'm not quite sure when the last time we had anyone who even graduated law school with a 4.0 is, but it has not been since I've been on faculty. So, I imagine, I'm sure it has happened, but I have not personally witnessed it at KU Law School. The other thing that I would, another response I would give to that is slightly less than perfect. I've not seen, especially a 1L exam, that even approaches being perfect in my entire time. They're usually pretty bad. And to be perfectly honest, the curve helps. I mean, if you were just putting on an objective point system, the curve inflates the grades more than it depresses them. If you want to be and I see our law students shaking their heads. It's like, yeah, I've gone in and I've reviewed my exams. It's a pretty regular experience for me to award Bs for scores that probably are in the neighborhood of 45% of the points that were available. So I would look at it from a slightly different point of view. I think that Charles, to get to your point, which is to say this is not supposed to be some sort of boot camp humiliation experience, but rather you and all your fellows are trying to parachute in media res to an active profession, which does not say you get to join as a rookie. You have to join with a license, right? And so you have to catch up to about 1,000 years worth of Anglo-American legal history and knowledge in 3 years, and that's hard. So that's the challenge you're putting yourself up to. Tons and tons of people make it every year. That's what you have to do, but that's the approach that we have at KU and that every law school in the United States has, is that they have a curved and class rank approach to evaluation. Since that's the tradition, whether if we were sitting around having a philosophical discussion about that, it's a different thing, but that has been the tradition in the United States for quite some time. And yeah. Well,
we've just spent a few minutes covering probably the least favorite part of law school. But I think we'll get from Robert and Zachary that there are good, positive things about law school too. So let me throw out the question: what are some of the best things about law school? And if you say the grading curve, you're going to lose all credibility. So.
Oh, I was going to say one more thing just about the grades, but for undergrad side, your grades in law school that first year, your grades do not come back and affect your GPA for your bachelor's degree. So if you're like, you got that 4.0 and you're freaked out that your law classes are going to ruin that, that's not the case. So just so you know, that's a good thing.
So Zach, what can you tell us something? Bring us back from the depths here.
Yeah, I was going to be real dramatic and be like, I don't know. But I think my favorite thing is definitely the people. So, and much like you.
Just going to second that real quick.
Yeah, and you should all do traffic court with Rob. It's a great experience. Shout out for you.
I'll get that plug in at some point.
Well, like Professor Mulligan was saying, like lawyers are like 0.01% of the population. And a lot of adult lawyers, they joke about how all of their friends are also lawyers. And I'm not going to tell you like, oh, lawyers are better than everybody else. But were you like, well, okay, fine. I mean, your wife is a lawyer. So, I mean, I'm sure there's some bias there. But I remember on one of the first days, they asked, okay, who here can speak a foreign language? And like 75% of people's hands went up. Who here has been published? And like half of the room's hands went up. I mean, people in your classes will have done amazing things. They'll have served in AmeriCorps, they've been teachers, like, and they've got more experiences to come. So just like be open to learning about different people, and it's really valuable to just be able to brush shoulders with some of the most amazing people in the world.
Cool. Robert?
Zach stole my answer about the people. Zach's actually one of my favorite people in the law school, if you can't tell that we're friends. Largely because we met during the lead program. So really, I think the relationships for me is a large part of the thing that I've enjoyed getting out of law school. I've also enjoyed sort of seeing what I can do and stretching my limits to give a second answer, because law school is going to challenge you in a way that you've never been challenged before. And I like seeing where my limits are, figuring them out, and becoming just better at my job. No one's work product is perfect. There's always room to improve, and I love trying to do that. So that's probably my second favorite part of law school, behind the people.
I would also add, I think, Charles dropped off, but I would say one of the benefits actually of the blind grading system is that your faculty get to know you not by your grade. So I actually have no idea, I have really little interest in determining what people's grades are, but rather know them as people through their work ethic, organization, the conversations we have, the questions we have. The grades are a thing, and it's a competitive world, and it's a zero-sum world, some sense in practice. But that's not how we interact with each other, and I think that's a thing. And it's also things that's unique about KU, because it is small enough that it's interpersonal, so that you get to know your faculty well, as sort of mentors and junior colleagues, as opposed to you're the person who sits in the back corner and wears a baseball hat or whatever.
That's great. We've been talking a lot. I'd love to hear from some of our folks out there. So let me ask our lead students, what is the thing you're most interested in for law school? And whoever answers first gets a KU Law pin, a really cool little pin. How's that? Not to bribe people or anything, but
Okay, well, it's not for the pin, but I think I'm most excited just to get to learn about so many different things. Just the different types of classes you can take, the different internship opportunities, and I think just to kind of expand my focus and really learn what I want to hone in on and what I want to practice.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like this last semester of undergrad, I lost some motivation because I was like, what? This isn't going to help me. Like, why am I learning this stuff? I just want to go to law school and learn about the law, because that's what I want to do. So I'm really excited to finally get to focus on what I actually want to do. And I'm also really excited to meet new people too, because I've heard that that's one of the best parts. So yeah.
Yeah, I kind of agree with what Caitlin was saying. As I was taking some of the constitutional law classes they have for the undergrad, I just got sort of really excited to learn more about that kind of thing. And I was like, well, this is more of a class about what I necessarily want to do. And it's just, I find it really interesting just how precedents evolved. So I want to learn more about that. And then learn the other fields of law that I haven't yet really worked with. So that's kind of what I'm interested in.
Yeah, I kind of agree with everyone. I remember back in February or March, before all this coronavirus stuff happened, Caitlin and I were talking about how we're just ready to go to law school, and undergrad is almost over. So I think that 1L, I'm excited for the general classes that we have to take, but also as law school progresses, I'm excited to focus in on something. specifically.
Well, those are great responses. Robert and Zachary, did you find any of those in your law school experience?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot more utility in what you're learning in law school. I will give a shout out. If you guys took con law from Professor Castle, she also teaches law school classes, and she's a really good person to stay in contact with because she's definitely like always in your corner. So definitely try to develop relationships with faculty as much as you can. And I do have to leave in a few minutes for work, but it was good to meet y'all. And I know some of you are ready for mock trial, so but it's good to see you guys, and I hope to see you in the classroom. So.
Great, Robert. Why don't we leave you with the last word on this meeting?
On this meeting, well, now I'm going to put in a plug for traffic court.
Please do. Tell us about traffic court.
So, I think a couple of you know me, a couple of you may not, but I'm pretty involved in traffic court, and I would highly recommend that you all check it out your first semester because it's a great opportunity for people who are both thinking about doing transactional or litigation work. You get your own client. The stakes are very low, so you can't mess it up. We really are there to help you sort of every step of the way, whether it's with actual traffic court stuff or whether it's with more law school stuff in terms of, just giving you general advice about whatever. I think we've got a great group of officers that are really excited about helping you out. I currently have an email from one of them in my inbox about things that she wants to do for you all. So I would just recommend checking out that opportunity. And we are sort of putting in a contingency plan for if coronavirus makes us do our hearings online.
Well, it's putting you out of business because they're not doing traffic tickets anymore on campus or parking tickets.
But that doesn't mean that we don't have an in-person docket right now, so there will still be hearings. I'm
parking on the lawn these days,
I might have to let KU Parking know about that, Steve. No. Otherwise, I think as Steve pointed out in the chat, there are a lot of other great opportunities and ways to prove yourself in law school, regardless of grades, whether it's publication, moot court, or half a dozen Innocence Project, clinics, jobs. There are just so many opportunities, and getting hung up on one thing is just not really all that productive. So enjoy your first year and work hard. You'll be just fine.
Great. I want to thank Morgan for joining us and for being a great advisor for our lead students, and Professor Mulligan, who's really been a leader in the LEAD program. Of course, our current LEAD law students who have really been trailblazers helping build the program and willing to spend some time out of their afternoon. Robert's calling in from work. He had to beg his bosses to let him do this. So thank the law firm there. I think is it Saunderson?
It's Wallace Saunders.
Wallace Saunders. Thank you, the law firm of Wallace Saunders.
They do some insurance defense out here in Johnson County.
Excellent. And of course, to our incoming LEAD students, we're really excited to have you. And we look forward to seeing you, hopefully in person. We're planning for in person. If not, we'll see you at a Zoom meeting near you. So have a great day. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.